Grand Admiral stood on the command deck of his flagship and looked at the stars through the giant window. His fleet filled the space around him. 200 warships, each one larger than a small moon, blocked the path to the planet below. The planet was called 3, and its people had asked the Galactic Council for help, did not care about their request. The Empire wanted this system, and he would take it. His ships were beautiful in their terrible way. Dark metal hulls stretched for kilometers. Weapons covered every surface. The smallest ship in his fleet was still larger than most species could build. This was the power of the Empire. They built big because big meant strong. Everyone in the galaxy knew this truth. "Admiral," said Sub-Commander from his station nearby, "we are receiving another message from the colony." Waved his hand in the air. "Ignore it. They have nothing to say that matters. The blockade stays until they surrender." Nodded and turned back to his screens. He was younger then and had not yet learned to enjoy moments like this. War was simple when you were the biggest. You arrived, you demanded, and you took. They had done this for 1,000 years. On the planet below, 3 million colonists waited in fear. They were a mix of species from across the galaxy. Farmers, traders, families who wanted a quiet life on the edge of known space. They had done nothing wrong except live on a world the Empire decided it wanted. Was about to order his afternoon meal when an alarm sounded across the bridge. "Hyperspace signatures detected," announced the sensor officer. "Multiple contacts incoming." Felt a moment of surprise. No one had come to help the colony in 3 weeks. The Galactic Council sent messages but no ships. Other empires looked away. Who would be foolish enough to challenge 200 warships? The answer appeared on his screens a moment later. 12 ships dropped out of hyperspace and into normal space. They were small. Leaned forward and looked at them more closely. They were very small. The largest was perhaps 300 meters long. His flagship was 15 kilometers from front to back. These new ships looked like insects next to his fleet. "What species?" asked. Checked his readings twice before answering. "Human, Admiral. The ships are human." The bridge went quiet for a moment. Then someone laughed. The laugh spread across the command deck until Even allowed himself to smile. Humans were new to the galaxy. They had only been traveling between stars for a short time. Their worlds were few, their technology was young, and their ships were small. Everyone knew humans were not a serious threat to anyone. "Open a channel to them," ordered. "I want to speak to whoever commands these toy ships." The communication screen flickered and showed the face of a human. It was a female with dark hair pulled back tight. Her uniform was simple gray with no decorations. Behind her, could see a bridge that seemed impossibly small compared to his own. "This is Captain Park of the Earth Defense Fleet," the human said. Her voice was calm and steady. "We received the distress call from 3. We are here to escort the civilian population to safety." Let the silence hang for a moment so she could appreciate his power. "Captain, I am Grand Admiral of the Empire. You have made a mistake coming here. Look at your fleet and look at mine. Do you see the difference?" "I see it," Captain Park replied without emotion. "Then you understand that your 12 small ships cannot fight my 200 battle cruisers. I suggest you leave now. I will give you 1 hour to go back where you came from. After that, I will use your ships for target practice." On the human ship, Lieutenant sat at the tactical station and watched the data flow across her screens. She was counting the enemy ships, measuring their sizes and studying their positions. Her mind worked fast, finding patterns and weaknesses that others might miss. "Captain," she said quietly, 204 ships, 47 different classes. Their formation is spread thin to maintain the blockade." Captain Park nodded slightly but kept her eyes on the screen showing. "Admiral, we will not leave. We ask that you move your ships and allow the civilians to evacuate. No one needs to fight today." Laughed again. This time the sound was harder, meaner. "You ask. You come to my blockade with 12 ships and you ask. "Human, I have destroyed fleets larger than yours before breakfast. What could you possibly do against me?" Commander stood at the back of the bridge with his arms crossed. He was an old soldier who had fought in many battles. He had gray in his hair and scars on his face. He had seen what human ships could do when pushed. He almost felt sorry for the "Captain," said Ensign Lee from the communications station. "The colony is asking for updates. They want to know if help is really here." Captain Park finally allowed herself a small smile. "Tell them help is here. Tell them to prepare for evacuation. We will handle the blockade." Heard this and his eyes grew wide with anger. "Handle the blockade? You cannot be serious. I am giving you 1 hour, human. 1 hour to run away. After that, your ships become dust." "We will be here, Admiral," Captain Park said. "We are not leaving until every civilian is safe." The communication ended, stared at the blank screen for a long moment. Then he turned to his crew with fire in his eyes. "Prepare all weapons," he ordered. "When the hour ends, we destroy them, every single ship. I want nothing left but burning metal." Felt something cold in his stomach as he watched the human ships on his screen. They were not running. They were not even moving. They just sat there in space, 12 small shapes against 200 giants, waiting for what would come next. Down in the engine room of Captain Park's ship, Chief Engineer checked his systems for the 100th time. Everything was ready. The reactors hummed with power. The weapons were charged. The shields were at full strength. He patted the metal wall beside him like it was an old friend. "They think we are small," he said to no one. "They will learn that small does not mean weak." Above him on the bridge, Captain Park looked at her crew. They were ready. They were not afraid. They were human, and humans did not abandon those who called for help. It did not matter that the enemy had more ships. It did not matter that each enemy ship was larger than a city. Humans had faced worse odds before. The hour began to count down. In 60 minutes, the Empire would learn a lesson that the galaxy would never forget. They would learn why smart species did not laugh at human warships. They would learn what happened when humanity came to fight. The hour passed slowly on both sides. Spent the time eating his meal and telling jokes about humans to his officers. He described how easy the battle would be. He promised medals and rewards to the crew members who destroyed the most human ships. His confidence filled the bridge like a bad smell. On the human ships, the crew made final preparations. They checked weapons, ran system tests, and made sure everything worked perfectly. There was no panic. There was no fear. They had trained for this. They knew what their ships could do. When the hour ended, stood from his command chair and pointed at the screen. "Send the crushing wind forward. 1 cruiser should be enough to destroy their lead ship. Let the humans see what happens when they refuse the Empire." The crushing wind was a medium cruiser, only 2 kilometers long. It was one of the smaller ships in the fleet, but it was still 6 times larger than any human vessel. Its captain felt honored to be chosen for the first kill. He would make this quick and impressive. The cruiser moved forward through space. Its weapons powered up with a low hum that could be heard throughout the ship. Targeting systems locked onto the nearest human vessel. Everything was ready for an easy victory. "Fire," the captain ordered. Massive energy beams shot across the darkness toward the human ship. They were bright enough to blind anyone looking directly at them. They carried enough power to crack a small moon in half. They raced toward their target at the speed of light. They missed. The human ship was no longer where the targeting system said it would be. In the time between the order to fire and the beams reaching their target, the human vessel had moved. It had not moved a little. It had moved a lot, sliding sideways through space like water flowing around a stone. On the bridge of the crushing wind, the captain stared at his screens in confusion. "That is not possible. No ship can move that fast." He was wrong. Human ships were built differently from ships. Where the valued size and power, humans valued speed and precision. A human warship could change direction in seconds. It could accelerate faster than sensors could track. It was small because small meant quick. Lieutenant watched the enemy fire miss and allowed herself a brief smile. Their targeting systems are too slow for us. They are designed to hit big, slow targets. Return fire, Captain Park ordered. Engines only. Disable, do not destroy. The human ship responded instantly. Its weapons were not as large as weapons, but they did not need to be. They were precise. They hit exactly where they aimed every single time. 3 shots struck the crushing wind. Each one hit an engine port with perfect accuracy. The massive cruiser shuddered as its propulsion systems failed one by one. Within moments, it was drifting dead in space, unable to move or fight. The battle had lasted less than 1 minute. Watched from his flagship with his mouth hanging open. He could not understand what had happened. One of his cruisers, a proud warship of the Empire, had been disabled by a single human ship smaller than its cargo bay. "Send 10 ships," he ordered, his voice shaking with anger. 10 ships against their entire fleet. End this now. 10 cruisers moved forward in a line. They were careful this time. Their captains had seen what happened to the crushing wind. They adjusted their targeting systems and prepared for fast-moving enemies. They would not make the same mistake twice. But the humans had more than one trick. Commander gave the order from his position. Split formation, groups of 3, draw them apart. The 12 human ships separated into 4 groups of 3. Each group picked targets and moved in different directions. The cruisers had to choose which group to follow. Their careful formation broke apart as they chased the smaller, faster human vessels. This was exactly what the humans wanted. A cruiser called the Iron Storm chased 3 human ships toward the edge of the battle area. Its captain pushed his engines hard, trying to catch the tiny enemies. He was so focused on the chase that he did not see the trap. The 3 human ships suddenly stopped running. They turned and flew directly at the Iron Storm, passing on 3 different sides. As they passed, each one fired at a different system. One hit the weapons, one hit the shields, one hit the sensors. The cruiser went blind and helpless in seconds. Across the battle space, similar scenes played out again and again. Human ships danced around their larger enemies like birds around elephants. They struck fast and moved faster. They never stayed in one place long enough to be hit. Sub-Commander watched the battle data on his screen with growing horror. "Admiral, we have lost 3 cruisers. Their engines are dead. 2 more have no weapons. 1 is blind." "How many humans have we hit?" demanded. Checked his numbers twice before answering. "None, Admiral. We have hit none of them." The bridge went silent. 6 warships disabled in minutes, and not a single human ship had been scratched. This was not how battles were supposed to go. This was not how the universe worked. Ensign Lee intercepted a communication between 2 ships. The voices were frightened. They talked about human ships appearing out of nowhere, striking before anyone could react, then disappearing again. One officer called the humans ghosts made of metal. Captain Park listened to the intercepted message and felt no joy. This battle was necessary to save the colonists, but she did not enjoy causing fear. War was ugly even when you were winning. "Captain," Lieutenant reported, "the remaining 4 attacking ships are falling back to the main fleet. They have broken off their attack." On his flagship screamed at his officers. He threw things. He made threats. His perfect battle had turned into a disaster, and he could not understand why. How could tiny ships defeat his mighty cruisers? How could humans, a species that had been in space for only 100 years, fight like this? Approached carefully. "Admiral, perhaps we should reconsider our strategy. The humans fight differently than any enemy we have faced before." "Differently," spat the word. "They are insects. They have no right to fight at all." "Yet they are winning," said quietly. Grabbed by his uniform and pulled him close. "Say that again. I dare you to say that again." stayed silent, but his eyes told the truth. 3 cruisers disabled, 2 more damaged. The humans had proven that size alone did not win battles. Something had changed in this war and was only beginning to understand what. Chief Engineer reported from the engine room. "All ships at full power, Captain. No damage taken. We can keep this up all day." Captain Park nodded. The first test had passed. The now knew that human ships were not toys, but 200 warships still blocked the path to the planet. The battle was not over. It was just beginning. She looked at the enemy fleet on her screen and planned her next move. The colonists below were counting on her. She would not let them down. Ambassador watched the battle from her observation ship far from the fighting. She represented the Galactic Council, sent to record what happened but not to interfere. Her species, had been watching younger races fight for thousands of years. They had learned to stay neutral and let others solve their own problems. But this battle troubled her. She opened a communication channel to the flagship, appeared on her screen, his face red with anger and confusion. She had known him for decades and had never seen him look so shaken. "Grand Admiral," she said in her calm, measured voice, "I must advise you to consider your position. The humans have already disabled 6 of your ships without losing any of their own." "I do not need advice from observers," snapped. "The Empire does not retreat." "I am not suggesting retreat. I am suggesting that you do not fully understand what you are fighting." Paused to let her words sink in. "Humans have a reputation, Admiral, a reputation that you may have ignored." "Reputation," laughed, but the sound was hollow. "They are a young species with small ships. What reputation could they have?" His expression remained neutral. "The Council has records. Humans have fought many battles since they reached the stars. They have never lost a war. Not once. Species older and stronger than yours have tried to defeat them and failed." "Then those species were weak." "Perhaps," said, "or perhaps there is something about humans that you do not yet understand. I suggest you find out before more of your ships fall silent." The communication ended. Stared at the empty screen, her words echoing in his mind. Never lost a war. It seemed impossible. Humans were so new, so small, so fragile compared to the great powers of the galaxy. How could they have such a perfect record? On her ship, Captain Park received an alert from Ensign Lee. "Captain, I am intercepting more communications from the fleet. Their crews are scared. They are asking questions about us, about Earth, about why our ships move so fast." "Good," Commander said. "Fear is a weapon too. Let them worry." Captain Park nodded slowly. "What are their command ships doing?" Lieutenant checked her tactical display. 3 command ships are positioned behind the main fleet. They are coordinating the blockade. If we disable them, the entire formation will lose direction. The plan formed in Captain Park's mind. It was risky. It was bold. It was exactly the kind of thing humans did best. "Lieutenant," she said, "calculate a path through their formation, straight through the middle to the command ships." His fingers flew across her controls. The path appeared on screen, a thin line weaving between dozens of enemy warships. "It can be done, Captain, but we will be within their weapons range for 37 seconds. 37 seconds, Captain Park repeated. "We have survived worse." She opened a channel to the other human ships and explained the plan. Commander would lead half the fleet to attack from the left side, drawing attention. Captain Park would take her ship and 2 others through the middle while the enemy was distracted. "This is crazy," Chief Engineer said from his station. "I love it." The attack began. 6 human ships swept toward the left side of the formation, firing at any target within range. The massive alien warships turned to face the threat, their weapons lighting up space with deadly energy. Saw the attack and felt a moment of hope. They are finally making a mistake. Focus all fire on those 6 ships. Destroy them. He did not notice the other 6 ships until it was too late. Captain Park's vessel shot forward like an arrow, diving straight into the gap between warships. The two ships behind her followed perfectly, matching her every move. They were inside the enemy formation now, surrounded by giants. They tried to shoot them. They fired everything they had, but the human ships were moving too fast and too unpredictably. Shots that should have hit passed through empty space. The humans twisted and turned through the chaos like they were dancing. Finally understood what he was seeing. "Admiral, they are heading for the command ships. They went through our formation to reach our commanders." Felt cold fear grip his hearts. Stop them, someone stop them. No one could. The human ships broke through the far side of the formation and found the three command ships waiting helplessly. Captain Park gave the order, and all three human vessels fired at once. The first command ship lost its engines. The second lost its communications. The third lost both. In moments, the blockade had no leaders. Ships began drifting out of position as confused captains waited for orders that would never come. Captain Park's ship turned gracefully in space, preparing to rejoin the rest of her fleet. As she passed the crippled command ships, she allowed herself to breathe again. They had done it. They had cut off the head of the snake. Back on the flagship, finally spoke the words that no one wanted to hear. "Admiral, I think I understand now. I have been reading the files on humans." Looked at him with hollow eyes. "What files?" "Humans come from a death world," explained. "Their planet is covered in poison, predators, and disease. Their gravity is crushing. Their weather is violent. Everything on their world tries to kill them from the moment they are born. So they evolve to survive all of it. They are stronger than they look, faster than they should be. Their minds work differently than ours. They see patterns and possibilities that we miss. They do not just fight battles, Admiral. They change the rules of the battle until they can win." Looked at the human ships on his screen. 12 small vessels had just torn through his fleet of 200. They had disabled his cruisers, destroyed his coordination, and made his mighty armada look foolish. And they had done it without losing a single ship. "What do we do?" asked. The arrogance was gone from his voice. Only fear remained. "We retreat," said. "We regroup somewhere safe and think about what we learned today. The humans are not our enemies unless we make them enemies. Perhaps it is time to stop making enemies." For a long moment, said nothing. The bridge was silent except for the distant sounds of alarms from damaged ships. The Grand Admiral of the Empire, commander of 200 warships, looked at his enemy's 12 small vessels and finally admitted the truth. He was losing. He gave the order to fall back. The fleet began to withdraw, moving away from the battle zone, but knew this was only a pause. His pride would not let him surrender. He would find a way to win this fight, even if it cost him everything. The humans watched the enemy retreat and felt no joy. They knew the battle was not over. They would come back. They always came back. But for now, the colonists on 3 were safe. That was enough. The retreat was not clean. Ships bumped into each other as frightened captains tried to move too quickly. Communication channels filled with panicked voices asking what had gone wrong. The perfect formation that had seemed so powerful now looked like a broken toy. Captain Park watched the chaos and opened a channel to the enemy flagship. "Grand Admiral, this is Captain Park. You can still end this without more fighting. Withdraw your fleet from this system and let the civilians leave. No one else needs to be hurt today." Heard her words and felt shame burn in his chest. A human was offering him mercy. A human, commanding a tiny fleet of tiny ships, was giving him a chance to surrender with honor. The humiliation was too much to bear. "No," he said through clenched teeth. "I will not be defeated by creatures who should be crawling in the dirt of their poisonous planet. All ships, turn and attack. Full power, destroy them all." The fleet stopped retreating. 200 warships turned in space and began to advance on the human position. Every weapon powered up. Every shield went to maximum strength. Had decided that if he could not win with strategy, he would win with overwhelming force. Lieutenant reported the change immediately. "Captain, they are not retreating anymore. The entire fleet is coming straight at us, all 200 ships." Commander moved to stand beside Captain Park. He is angry and embarrassed. He would rather lose his whole fleet than accept defeat from us. "Then we must make sure he does not lose his whole fleet," Captain Park said, "or his life. We are here to save people, not to create more death." She studied the tactical display and saw what she was looking for. Behind the fleet, far from the battle, lay the remains of an ancient battlefield. Thousands of years ago, two forgotten empires had destroyed each other in this system. Their broken ships still floated there, a graveyard of metal and memory. "Lieutenant, how well can ships navigate debris fields?" "Understood immediately." "Badly, Captain. Their ships are too big and their sensors are designed for open space combat. A dense debris field would blind them." "And our ships?" "Human ships are built for harsh conditions. We train in asteroid fields. We can navigate almost anything." The plan was clear. Captain Park shared it with her fleet through quick, coded signals. The human ships turned and began to fly away from the advancing armada. It looked like retreat. Saw the humans running and felt a surge of victory. "They are fleeing. Chase them. Do not let a single one escape." The fleet increased speed, pushing their massive engines as hard as they could go. They were so focused on catching the small human ships that they did not pay attention to where they were being led. The debris field appeared on their sensors too late. Captain Park's ship dove into the field of ancient wreckage like it belonged there. Her pilots twisted between broken hulls and spinning fragments of metal with perfect precision. The other human ships followed, weaving through the chaos without slowing down. They could not do the same. The first cruiser to enter the debris field collided with a piece of ancient hull armor. The impact tore through its shields and damaged its outer plating. The ship behind it tried to avoid the collision and crashed into a different piece of wreckage. More ships piled into the field, unable to stop their momentum. Commander watched the enemy fleet struggle and felt no pleasure. "They are destroying themselves. They are so eager to catch us that they forgot to look where they were going." "That is what happens when anger replaces thought," Captain Park said. "Now we end this." The human ships stopped retreating. They turned inside the debris field where no enemy could follow and began to pick off the ships one by one. Each attack was precise and careful. Engines were disabled. Weapons were destroyed. Ships were left helpless but alive. Watched his fleet fall apart around him. The debris field that should have been nothing but old garbage had become a trap that was eating his ships. Human vessels appeared from between the wreckage, struck fast, and disappeared before anyone could target them. "How many ships have we lost?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Check the count. 47 disabled, Admiral, 23 more damaged. We have not destroyed a single human ship." The flagship shuddered as something struck its outer hull. Warning lights flashed across every station. A moment later, another impact, and another. The human ships were targeting the flagship itself. "Shields failing on the port side," an officer shouted. "Weapons offline in Section 7, called another. Felt his ship dying around him. He had led 200 warships against 12 enemies, and he was losing. The greatest fleet the Empire had ever sent to battle was being dismantled by ships that could fit inside his cargo bays. Far away, Ambassador had activated her ship's broadcast systems. Every species in the Galactic Council was receiving live footage of the battle. Millions of beings across hundreds of worlds watched as 12 human warships defeated an empire. The footage showed the impossible made real. Small ships danced around giants. Precision defeated power. Intelligence defeated arrogance. The galaxy watched and understood that everything they thought they knew about strength was wrong. On a space station in a distant system, A group of aliens watched the broadcast in stunned silence. One of them finally spoke. If 12 human ships can do this, imagine what their full fleet could do. The thought spread across the galaxy like fire. Humans were not weak. Humans were not primitive. Humans were dangerous in ways that no one had expected. Back in the battle, Captain Park received word that the flagship was crippled. His command ship drifted helplessly, unable to move or fight. The fleet that had laughed at her tiny ships now floated dead in space. She could destroy them. Every ship in the enemy fleet was vulnerable. She had won completely and could finish them forever. No one would blame her for ending the threat. But that was not why humans fought. "All ships cease fire," she ordered. "The battle is over." Her crew stared at her in surprise. Even Commander raised an eyebrow. "Captain, they may attack again if we let them go." "Perhaps," Captain Park agreed. "But we came here to save lives, not to take them. The colonists are safe now. The blockade is broken. Our mission is complete." She opened a channel to one last time. "Grand Admiral, your fleet is disabled. We have no wish to destroy you. Take your ships and go home. Tell your empire what happened here today. Tell them that humans do not seek war, but we will not run from it either." Sat in his broken command chair on his crippled ship and listened to her words. He had no response. What could he possibly say? He had brought the pride of the empire to this system, and a handful of human ships had torn it apart. The humans were sparing his life. The thought burned worse than any wound. Stood beside him quietly. "Admiral, we should accept. We should leave while we can." Nodded slowly. His voice was hollow and defeated. "Order the retreat. All ships that can still move, get us out of here." They began to limp away from the battlefield. It would take them days to leave the system, moving as slowly as their damaged ships could manage. The humans watched them go but did not attack. The battle was truly over. The colonists of 3 were finally safe. 3 days after the battle, 3 was alive with activity. Transport ships landed and lifted off constantly, carrying civilians to safety. Children who had hidden in fear now ran through the streets laughing. Families packed their belongings and prepared for new lives on safer worlds. The nightmare was over. Captain Park stood in the colony's main square and watched the evacuation proceed. She had not slept much since the battle. There was too much work to do, too many people to help, too many details to manage. But seeing the relief on the faces around her made every tired moment worth it. Commander approached with a data pad in his hand. "Captain, we received a message from the fleet, or what is left of it." "No," Sub-Commander sent it privately. "He wants to speak with you." This surprised her. Though we're not known for reaching out to enemies after a defeat, she accepted the communication request and appeared on her screen. He looked different than he had during the battle. The arrogance was gone from his eyes. Something else had taken its place. "Captain Park," began, "I wanted to thank you before our fleet leaves this system completely." "Thank me." "You showed us mercy. You could have destroyed every ship in our fleet. You had the power and the right, but you chose to spare us." Paused, struggling with his next words. "I have served in the military for 30 years. I have never seen an enemy do what you did." Captain Park nodded slowly. "We did not come here to kill anyone. We came to protect the people who asked for help. Once they were safe, there was no reason to continue fighting." "That is what makes you dangerous," said. "Not your speed or your tactics, your mercy. It is harder to fight an enemy who refuses to hate you." The communication ended, but his words stayed with her. Mercy as a weapon. It was not how most species thought about war. Humans understood something that others often forgot. True strength was not about how much you could destroy. It was about how much you could protect. Ensign Lee received a promotion that evening. Captain Park pinned the new rank symbol on her uniform while the crew watched and cheered. The young communications officer had performed brilliantly during the battle, intercepting enemy messages and keeping the fleet coordinated under impossible pressure. "You earned this," Captain Park told her. "The enemy never knew how much we could hear. That gave us an advantage worth 100 ships." Smiled proudly, but she also understood the weight of what they had done. This battle would change things. The galaxy was watching, and humanity had just announced itself as a power to be respected. Across the galaxy, Ambassador presented the battle footage to the full Galactic Council. The chamber was silent as representatives from 100 species watched the impossible victory unfold. They saw the mock the human fleet. They saw the mockery turn to fear. They saw 200 warships fall to 12. When the footage ended, the chamber erupted in discussion. Representatives talked over each other, argued, and demanded answers. How had this happened? How could such a small force defeat such a large one? What did this mean for the balance of power in the galaxy? Waited for the noise to die down before speaking. The humans have shown us something today. They have shown us that size is not strength. Numbers are not power. The species we dismissed as young and primitive has been training for war since before they reached the stars. They come from a world that tried to kill them every day of their existence. They evolved to survive anything. She paused to let her words sink in. But more importantly, they showed us mercy. They could have destroyed the fleet. They chose not to. They fight to protect, not to conquer. Perhaps we should consider what that means for our future dealings with them. The council debated for hours, but the conclusion was clear. Humanity had earned its place among the powers of the galaxy, not through aggression or conquest, but through courage, skill, and restraint. Back on 3, the last transport lifted off carrying the final group of colonists to safety. Captain Park watched it disappear into the sky and felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The mission was complete. Every person who had called for help was now safe. Chief Engineer joined her on the landing pad. "You know, Captain, the whole galaxy saw what we did here. Everyone knows about humans now." "Is that good or bad?" Smiled. "I think it depends on whether they plan to be our friends or our enemies. I hope most of them choose wisely." A message arrived from the Empire later that day. It was not from who had been removed from command in disgrace. The new communication came from the High Council itself. They officially apologized for the blockade of 3. They announced the end of all aggressive actions in the system. They requested peaceful negotiations with Earth's government. Lieutenant read the message to the crew. "They are afraid of us now. They do not want to fight humans again." "Fear is not what I wanted," Captain Park replied, "but I will accept it if it means peace." The human fleet prepared to leave 3. Their work here was done. As the ships lifted off from the planet's surface, messages began arriving from other systems. Other species, other colonies, other worlds that had been threatened by larger powers. They all asked the same question. Would humans help them too? Captain Park looked at the flood of requests and felt something between pride and concern. Humanity had just become the protector of the weak, the defender of those who could not defend themselves. It was a heavy responsibility, but it was the right one. Her ship rose through the atmosphere and joined the rest of the fleet in orbit. The stars stretched out before them, endless and full of possibility. Somewhere out there, other civilizations were watching. Other powers were reconsidering their plans. Other bullies were wondering if their next victim might call for human help. Commander stood beside her on the bridge. "Where do we go next, Captain?" "Wherever we are needed," she answered. "That is what humans do." The fleet turned toward the stars and jumped into hyperspace, leaving 3 behind. The colonists they had saved would tell stories about this day for generations. Children would grow up hearing about the small fleet that faced an empire and won. And across the galaxy, a new understanding spread. When humans sent ships to help, it did not matter how many they sent. It did not matter how small those ships looked compared to others. A human fleet was never just a group of vessels. It was a promise. A promise that those who threatened the innocent would face consequences. A promise that the weak would find protectors. A promise that mercy would be offered first, but strength would follow if mercy was refused. They had mocked the small fleet. They had laughed at the tiny ships and the young species that built them. They had thought size meant everything. They knew better now. The whole galaxy knew better. Humanity had arrived, and nothing would ever be the same.